What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Heir Flow Podcast, where kingdom identity meets divine strategy. If you're ready to stop chasing and start flowing in everything God has purpose for your life, you're exactly where you need to be. I'm your host, Ricky Thomas, and today we're diving into part 2 of the manifestation series I started last week called Manifestation Rewritten, Living the Dream from the End. Living from the End. Got a little ahead of myself with the previous episode. So if you caught part 1 last week, or the last time you listened to it, we kicked things off by defining the vision through the dream framework. And the link to that will be in the description for this podcast episode. Go check it out. That's kind of the kickoff for the Manifestation Rewritten series. But today is time to confront the ceiling. So this episode is called Shift Your Ceiling, Break the Limits You Didn't Know You Had. Because the truth is, you can't walk in the promise if you're still programmed for survival. And I've spoken about that before through different episodes on this podcast, is really being in survival mode. And that's not what God created us to be. You can't rise if your identity is still rooted in lack, fear, or the past. So we're not just manifesting, we're renewing our minds. We're aligning with heaven's version of us. So let's shift. Let's release the programming, silence the fear, and rise as the heirs we were always created to be. So let's flow. As we kick into this, I just want to get right into it. Me and this is just my thing. I love acronyms when I do podcast titles and themes. So as I mentioned before, this is called the shift. So the focus is on shift, and we're changing, we're breaking through the ceilings that we have on ourselves. And so as we talk through this and really understand what the breakdown is, we're going to start with the letter S. And what S means in shift is our subconscious programming. So understanding that our subconscious is the blueprint that we didn't know you were building from. So again, your subconscious is the blueprint you didn't know you were building from, we were building from. The subconscious is formed before the age of 7, and that's scientifically proven. Your subconscious is built at early ages, and it's shaped by family dynamics, religion or spiritual environment, cultural norms, or just repetition of emotional experiences. So for some, they may have some things that they've heard or subconsciously been exposed to, like phrases like money doesn't grow on trees. You hear somebody say, don't trust anyone, or you'll hear, or you've heard the phrase, or, several times you've spoken, you've heard it from other people. You'll always struggle. It's just how life is. And so what I want to ask you guys as we go through this and as we kick this off a little bit more is, what phrases did you hear growing up about whether it's love, money, health, or even God himself? And then ask yourself, are those still running your life today? And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't have to be all bad, but just think about those things you've heard growing up, and then ask yourself, are those still thoughts? Are those things still running rampant, good or bad, in how you live your life and how you think today? As I mentioned, this series was rooted out of a couple different people that I've been following and reading. One is Neville Goddard, and one of the quotes from his book, he said that, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. And that was very powerful to me. And we'll go deeper into that later on. But, I'm just going to read that again because I want everybody to catch that. Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. And what he's basically saying is the reality, the physical, the true reality of our lives, what we believe is our world, our truth, is formed by our conceptions of ourselves. And so if we change that, we can change our environment. You can change yourself on how you approach and how you're approached about love, money, health, all those things. So that's the big thing as we start off and talking about the shift is really thinking about our subconscious programming. What are those things that we've been just taught over the years, that have just been set and ingrained in our lives, because that's going to be a big part of this shift. The H in shift is our habitual thought loops. And basically what that means is what you repeat becomes what you believe. So again, if there's sayings that you say, and I'll going through a couple of them, repetition creates identity. And I wanted to point that out as I was preparing for this episode. Repetition does create identity, because, we talk about the power of the tongue. We talk about things that you just say without even thought. It just quickly comes out of your mouth. So when you think about habitual thought loops, there are things like, I can't handle more money. And there are people who say that. You may want more money, but you look at it and say, I really can't take that much more money. I got enough. Or, and that's a thought, right? That is, some people think that way. Or if you talk about relationships, people always leave, whether it's somebody breaking up with you, somebody passing away. There's always that mindset, that thought loop of all the time that I can't get close to people because they always leave some way, shape, or form. And that's a challenge. Or another thing I've heard people say is, this is just my luck. I think I shared a story of a coworker I used to have some years ago, and she would say it almost daily. And I got to the place where I had to tell her one day, like, stop saying that. But she would always say, if it wasn't for bad luck, I'll have no luck at all. And yeah, it was very interesting to hear that. And I said it in a polite way, and she took it very well. I wasn't trying to step on her toes, but I didn't want to receive that inside of in me as well, and start to have that thought process. So as you think about habitual thought loops, think about what you deal with on a daily basis. Identify your most common negative self-talk. What are those things that you say about yourself that's pretty regular? Some people will say, I'm just fat, I'm lazy. That is a habitual thought loop. And that's what's in your mind. I'm greedy. I'm broke. Nobody loves me. I'm a bad kid. I'm a bad mother. I'm a bad father. All those things. And then once you identify some of those statements that you make about yourself, and again, this is about you. This is about yourself. Then ask, where did this come from? And is it even mine? Is it something that I created, or did I hear mom, dad, grandma, granddad, did I hear the cousins? Did I hear somebody who I was around all the time say it so much that I just picked that up? Because asking and identifying things that you say that's negative about yourself, and then finding out where it came from, it is important. So just kind of a little bit of reinforcement. And again, there's a lot of quotes that I want to put out here, but I try to pick very specific ones that really stuck out to me. But one quote that Neville Goddard spoke is, he said, the subconscious does not argue with you. It simply accepts what you feel to be true. So the subconscious just carries out whatever it is. So as we go back and we really think about, changing and shifting and getting to a new place and understanding the power of the subconscious, our subconscious just carries out the commands. If you think and feel and everything in your subconscious is a certain way, that's what the reality is going to be. It's going to bring those things in. It's going to bring poverty. It's going to bring poor relationships, poor health, all of those things that you don't want, but consciously you don't want it, but subconsciously you just don't understand how much the power of your thoughts, the power of your tongue is sabotaging you. So very important to think through that as we continue to move on with this episode. I want to go into I in shift is internal limitations. Most ceilings are invisible because they're internal. And a lot of times, especially for church folks, very religious folks, everybody wants to say the enemy, or, we want to give some external power to people who really don't have power. a lot of times, and I've mentioned it before, we're our own enemies. There's no external force. It's not the black man, the white man, this man, that man, this woman, this country, this government, this, that. Some of these ceilings we are putting on ourselves. And so the quote is that, most ceilings are invisible because they're internal. So internal limitations show up as, let's say, imposter syndrome. And I've talked about, I suffer from that at times. Imposter syndrome is essentially like, I don't feel like I deserve some of the success or some of the great things that happen to me, or I feel like I don't belong here because, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be doing this. And so it's almost like this self-sabotaging thing, which is definitely not good. And so that's something that I'm definitely working on. Like, no, I deserve all the goodness in my life, and I'm driving out and focusing on the good things. And that's when I want to create the reality of great things happening for me and my family. Another internal limitation is there's guilt for outgrowing others. Well, see, if I grow and I continue to be successful, then people may feel like I left them, or I'm too high and mighty, or it's you just put that limitation. Like I want to get better, but I don't want to get too better. I don't want to get too good. I don't want to get too far ahead, because if I do, people are gonna say I'm funny acting, or I'm too good for them. I'm too good to be in this neighborhood. I'm too good to do the things that I used to do. And that is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people deal with, is just that guilt for outgrowing others. Another internal limitation, I guess you can say example, is fear of being too much or not enough. And it's usually one of the other extremes. Either, you know, my personality is just too much for people. And you may be putting a limitation on yourself, because people may be like, I need that. I need that energy. Very energetic people, very positive people, very motivated, driven people. And they tend to, at times, get around other people that aren't the same way. And they will you will kind of let yourself, you would dim your own light, your own power, because you're assuming that, I might be too much, or people say they're just so extra. And then it's the flip side of not enough. I need to do more of this. I need to do more of that. And the reality is, the other person that you're in fear of being not enough for, including yourself, you're more than enough. But it's those limitations that you have internally that really drives for that. And so, as I mentioned, one of the podcasts I listen to a lot of times is by a gentleman named Brian Scott. And what he looks at, or what he calls internal limitations, is, he says it's like a money ceiling, because a lot of his podcast is around generating wealth, and some of the things that through your subconscious, we're limiting our abilities. So he calls it a money ceiling, or he calls it reception capacity. And essentially, it's the limit you believe you can handle. So that's your ceiling. It's what you think you can handle. And again, when the subconscious, you don't even realize it as you're going through things. So, and it applies to every area of life. How much love do you believe you're worthy of? How much health can you allow yourself to feel? So that's when, if you ask yourself this question, and really think about it this way: where do you tend to self-sabotage when things are going well? So things are going good, you're feeling good, relationship is going good. Your child may be doing well when they may have been challenged with a certain thing, or acting out, or whatever the case may be. And things are starting to go really good. And the thought is, where do you tend to self-sabotage when things are going well? Because when you hit that point, that's when your inner thermostat starts kicking in. That's where it's like, okay, now this is my ceiling. At that point, that is your ceiling. And that's where you've got to understand, well, why is that there? Why don't I feel like I deserve to go higher? Why is this my limit right here? Like, yeah, this is about as far as this is going to go. Something bad is going to happen, because it always does. And when you start thinking like that, that's the reality of, how this thought process, these ceilings, these internal limitations, this is where it really stops us. And it's not the enemy. Now, it may be, there are generational curses that are there. There are people who believe that poverty is just their portion. There are people that believe that they have generational health conditions that are, that are just that's just genetics. People say, "Oh, that's just genetics." Everything in genetically can be changed. Now, will it take some work? Yes, but we are all individuals. Predisposition, being predisposed to certain things, and that doesn't have to be our portion. We can recognize and identify that, hey, I see there are some patterns physically that I'm challenged with. My family has a history of blood pressure, but I don't, because I'm not believing that. I'm not speaking that over my life. And it's more than just that. It's also seeing yourself as healthy, seeing yourself as wealthy, seeing yourself as having great relationships. Just because your mother or your grandmother or people in your family have had poor relationships, men or women, whatever, doesn't mean that you have to. Just because you grew up in a home that didn't have both parents, or you were exposed to certain things, doesn't mean that you can't have the love that you desire of having, and you can't create that love with your own families. But those are those internal limitations. And I'm not saying it's not a real thing. And there's, trust me, I'm an advocate for therapy. There are therapists that are spiritually based that can help guide through that. And I would always suggest that. I'm not saying that you don't need help. And this is where prayer, this is where discernment, this is where being led by the Spirit will really help to guide that. All right. So the next letter in shift is F, which is fear-based conditioning. And so one of the quotes that I read was that fear is a teacher, but it's also a trap if left unchallenged. I'm going to read that again. Fear is a teacher, but it's also a trap if left unchallenged. So there are people who have this fear of success, and it's a real thing. You have a fear of success. A fear of success. It's like, well, will I lose it? Things are going well. Will I lose that? Will I lose that success? Will I lose this feeling, this high feeling that I have? This just feeling, great and euphoric and all this stuff. And then instead of focusing on continuing to build off of that feeling or that true success that you've garnered in whatever area of your life, you're focused on the opposite of, am I going to lose that? And that's that fear. That's not a teacher. That's a trap. Fear of failure. I've been very vocal on this podcast, and to a lot of people, that especially growing up, I had this huge fear of failure. It was almost like it paralyzes me in a way, or did paralyze me. And so when you have this fear of failure, it's like that failure to launch. What if I try and it doesn't work? And that can be spread across anything. That can be spread across relationships, relationships with people, relationships with God, try and get with business, the investments, what if I do this? Or, hey, I saw somebody, it's not even what you did. I saw somebody else do it, try it, and it didn't work for them. That's fear of failure. And that's not even your failure. That's just based off of what other people have gone through. And so you take their failure on as yours. And so that builds up that conditions you. That's that fear-based conditioning. Fear of rejection. That's huge. That's huge. That's why a lot of people have low self-esteem, or they won't go for, the job or sports or whatever, because they have this fear, will they accept me if I grow? Or where will they not like me? Is there something about me? And then you start getting to this whole place of self-sabotage. Self-sabotaging is really one of the biggest ceilings or biggest components of the ceilings we put on ourselves. And that fear of rejection is real. And so, and it's not even about, you approaching people, relationships, but it's if you go to a bigger place or go higher in your life and you're trying to change the way you live. For some people, they hang around folks that, they like to party, have a good time. And you say, hey, I'm getting older. And for me, it's cool for y'all. But for me, I'm just going to hang out. I'm not going to stop drinking. I really don't want to drink anymore. That wasn't fun. I used to do a party, people that use drugs. It's like, yeah, we used to use drugs, but I really don't want to do that anymore, and it's not that you do it in a way or you make these changes, to kind of make other people feel bad, but it's just the thought that they're going to feel some type of way because now when they go do activities that involve those things, you're going to bow out of that. And what I always, and I tell my kids that now, I'm like, your real friends will understand you. Your real friends will make time for you if they want to make time for you. Your real friends will not be offended because you've gotten to a place, especially if you say it and come in a way of love, like, hey, you guys have fun, party, enjoy. I'm at this place where I don't want to do that. Or I'm at a, and be honest, if you got that relationship, to be honest, like I'm at a place, spiritually where I just want to really focus on, having a better spiritual and physical relationship with myself and just being, with God and just being the best version of me. And I don't like how I am when I do A, B, or C. And some people may get offended no matter what, because they feel like, oh, they feel judged but that's not your hang up to deal with. Unfortunately, some people, it's hard for them to do that, but it's not. But that fear of a rejection of where they accept me, then, if you being a better person makes people pull away from you, I'm not saying being a jerk and all that other stuff, but I'm saying you're still the same person. You just do things, you just don't do the things that you've done before. And if they don't recognize that, again, as you have your journey and they're okay with that, then that season is up for that friendship or that relationship, and that's okay. So, one of the things that I learned, and it's very interesting, and I love this statement, but it says that fear often dresses itself as logic. Can you tell the difference? I'll read it again. Fear often dresses itself as logic. Can you tell the difference? And you think about that. When people are afraid, they come up with, when some people are afraid, they come up with all kind of crazy logic of why they can't do something. And it can be in the most innocent situations, you're going to get on a roller coaster. You're at an amusement park and you're like, yeah, I'm going to ride the roller coaster. And you go and look upstairs or look up at the height of the roller coaster. You hear people screaming, and then you start coming up with all kind of stuff like, man, look at that line. That line is long. I don't think I want to wait that long for this ride. Let's go. Maybe we'll come back later. Your logic is now shifted because the line is long. So I'm gonna come up with I'm gonna use some different logic to kind of drive that, and it can be as simple as that, or it can be, man, they say that so many businesses fail in the first year. And I think it's like, I forgot what the percentage was. I think at one point I heard something like 50%. It's probably higher, but 50% or more of most businesses fail in the first year of being open. And you hear that and it's like, yeah, why would I want to do that if it's got a high probability of failing? So you're you're conditioning yourself based off of that fear. So then you got to ask yourself, is this fear protecting me or preventing me? And that's the spin that is really going to be important. Is the fear protecting me or preventing me? And I'm going to almost say with 99% certainty that the fear is preventing you. And I say that about myself. There are people who have missed out on relationships, great relationships, not just, man and woman, dating type stuff, but just networking relationships and opportunities because of fear of just opening your mouth and introducing yourself. Again, something that we try to get our kids to do. Build network, build relationships with people, not for the purpose of using somebody, but that's what the world is like. That's what we are about. We're supposed to be having relationships. If I call myself a Christian, part of my duty is to be able to go out and speak and give my testimony. If anything else, just give my testimony of what Jesus Christ did for me. But fear will prevent me. It's not protecting you. You say, well, it's protecting me from rejection. It's protecting me from, being embarrassed. And it's not protection. It's preventing you from the true call that you have. And a lot of us want to do those things. So again, is the fear protecting you or is it preventing you? One of a well-known Bible verse in 1 John 4:18, it says that perfect love casts out fear. And so when you think about, as we've been talking about, how do we spiritually align and just trust in the flow that God has for us in our life? And it's that perfect love, because if you know that God loves you, no matter what, as human beings, we have our flaws. We are not perfect creatures, but there's a love, there's a spiritual high person in God and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ that has the perfect love, unconditional love. No matter what we do, no matter what we say, that love is always going to be there. And so that's where you align to where you drive out fear. If you know that God is putting you, if you trust in God, if you trust in that connection, you know that God will never put you in the situation that you can't handle, and there's a purpose and reason for that. And that is very, very big to understand, because you can't go through this transformation, you can't go through this shift, you can't manifest the things that you truly desire if you don't have a strong understanding of whose you are and who you are, and that love that God has for us, and wanting us to live the abundant life. And that's not just money, that's all around. So it's very important to remember that. Then as we close it out, in terms of the word shift, the last letter in that is T, and T is trust and transformation. And understand that transformation requires two things: clarity and courage. You have to be very, very clear about what it is that you desire. You can't manifest something if you're not clear about it. I say this about I use my kids all the time as examples, because as a parent, I understand what God probably feels like with me, and I say stuff to my kids, but you got to be clear about what it is that you want. So my kids got older. I'm like, even when they were younger, like, tell me what it is that you need. What is it that you want? They come and they're whining like, and they're like, okay, what happened? What is it that you want from me? What's going on? Let's talk, like, be specific. What is it? What hurts? You fail. Okay, you fail where? Tell me so I can make it better. And this is really going to be a pivot point for a lot of people. That clarity and courage is very big, because trust means choosing the new ceiling. And there's always going to be these ceilings, right? People say, "Oh, there's an open heaven under God," but until we have to continue to recondition ourselves to go higher and higher, to transcend, so that we are supposed to have the power to walk this earth and have the same things and be able to do the same things that God did, that Jesus did when he was on earth. That's why Jesus would look at the disciples and say, you have the same power. Like, he was like, what's going on? You guys walk with me. You my road dogs. Y'all supposed to be able to do this. We're supposed to be able to do that same thing, but you have to transcend from the limitations that are often placed on us being human. And that's ultimately why Jesus went back up into heaven, because he knew for him to truly have the power he needed, he had to transcend higher. But even when he was here, he was able to do amazing things, perform miracles, and manifest all the greatness. That is what we're supposed to do. So as I was saying, trust means choosing the new ceiling and building your life from there, not your past. So again, you don't build off the foundation of your past. You have to trust, create that new ceiling of where it is that you want to go, being clear about it and being courageous, and then building the life from there, because that changes your reality. So here's some sort of reframes that, from old beliefs to what your new beliefs should be. So just to get some context in this, and some of us may say it or think it, but the phrase "I never have enough," and a lot of times you hear that it's always tied to money. Sometimes it's "I'm never enough." But let's look at it, from just a clear example for money, because that's the one thing that everybody would talk about, that it's not, people will say it's not important, but it's the one thing that causes a lot of unhappiness in our lives, especially nowadays. And I can tell you, I know people that I mean, we've all seen people that have all the money in the world but have no peace. They have no joy. They have no real excitement about their life. They just can do a lot of things. And I'm not going to call out any celebrities, but there's a lot of it in the news. You hear about it all the time, suicides and things like that. And people are like, wow, they got all this money and they can go anywhere they want to and buy anything they want to. And that just goes to show you that stuff is great. Being able to do a lot for people, being able to have access to money that gives you access to make different choices, see different parts of the world. And that's all great. But some people have all that, but they can't have a stable relationship with people. They can't find love, or they feel like they can't find love for whatever reason. So you hear people say, or you'll say this old belief of "I never have enough." And your new belief needs to be now, money flows to me through expected and unexpected ways. So that new belief is a total mindset shift. That's the part of the transformation. It's being very clear. I'm not limiting myself anymore by saying I never have enough, because that, if you continue to say that, you believe that. So subconsciously, you're taking that in. I never have enough. No, money flows to me through expected and unexpected ways. That means that even ways that I don't even think about. I'm not focused on the how. As I've given the books out to my family to read from Neville Goddard, and we're circulating them through, you know, he says it a lot of times, between Neville Goddard and the other gentleman I listened to his podcast. They talk about, expected and unexpected. But the biggest thing that you have to understand with that is that you don't worry about how it comes to you. You worry about being specific in what it is that you desire. Don't focus on the when, don't focus on the how, focus on the what. And if you have a why that's big enough, that helps to really define what your what is. And that's going to be huge, very huge. The second thing you can say is, old belief that people have is that, or you may say, is love never lasts. And the shift, the transformation, and the new belief is, I create stable, passionate love rooted in truth. So I create stable, passionate love that is rooted in truth. I'm not worried about some external love doesn't last or never last, or, love just isn't a thing. There are people who curse marriages because that's their experience. The divorce rate is high, or their parents got married, they were married and they divorced, or this happened, or they're around people who don't care, they hate marriage. And, there's this narrative now. And at some point, probably need to do a series on marriage. I pray about that, but marriage is under attack. The family is under attack. So having that mindset that love never lasts. No, I create stable, passionate love rooted in truth. And that love is whether it's with a significant other, whether it's with my kids, whether it's with friends, whether it's with whatever. I can have good relationships. I don't have to have challenging relationships. I don't have to force myself to be in a relationship with somebody if I don't feel it's something that I need to have, and it's okay. Another old belief is I'm broken. And I've heard it. People say I feel broken, I'm just broken, I'm no good. I'm no good. I'm just there's people don't want me. I'm the trash. And those are some of the ones who the enemy has internally, the enemy, yourself, based off of experiences and people saying things that you've taken that on. And then there's also that external force of the enemy who essentially is trying to keep you from where you're supposed to be. And that is a tough thing. But see, that new belief, when you're focused on transformation, you start thinking and you start saying, I am rebuilding stronger and wiser. Every day I get up, it's a new day. It's a new day for transformation. I'm rebuilding stronger and wiser. And that's just keep thinking through that repetition that we talked about before. That's how you make that shift. That's how we all make that shift. I'm gonna leave you with another quote that I read from Neville Goddard, and he said, "Believe you are what you want to be. Remain faithful to your belief, and all your actions will conform to it." And so you hear that, and it's very powerful. Believe you are what you want to be. That first piece of it. Believe you are what you want to be. If nobody else, you can't focus on everybody else thinking about what, or you being what everybody else wants you to be. You've got to believe what you want to be, because that's what's going to build into your subconscious. That's what's going to exude out from who you are. And then if you once you get that what you want to be and you truly believe that, then you got to remain faithful to that belief. And if you can do that, then the way you live, the things that you do in your life will conform to it. And then that subconscious takes a hold of this, and now you see the reality around you change. When you stop saying I'm broke and you start saying I'm the head and not the tail. I'm a lender, not a borrower. I am wealthy, I'm rich. Money comes to me easy from expected and unexpected places. See, I'm not focused on the how it's delivered. I'm not focused on, when it's coming. I'm focused on the what it is, and I know why it is. When you have a vision board, that's your why. Those affirmations that you keep speaking, that is the things that you desire. That's the what. That's that loop that you keep hearing and you keep going through and playing around over and over again. See, people think that to be rich, that you got to go out there and you got to work your fingers to the bone 10, 15 hours, 20 hours, as much as you can a day, multiple jobs, and and it's not that. Sometimes you can do that and have money in your hand and still be broke. Why? Because you have to transform your relationship with money. You have to transform your relationship with love, with health. People don't lose weight just because they get up and go to the gym a few times. You have to change your thought process on food and exercise and create a habit for it, a balance. But until you get it, and that's why everybody says, until you get it in your mind, we talk about all the time New Year's resolutions, right? And all the gyms around, they always do these big sales at the beginning of the year to bring in new clients. Whether it's a gym, they do personal training. Like, It's all kind of special. It's like, hey, I got to build my roster up. I want to get people in here. And so people are hyped up. Yes, I start a new year, new me. I'm going to go out there and do this because it sounds good. You know, you need to do it, but you don't have you haven't developed the habits to be consistent. You just thought about it, but it's not truly, it didn't truly register in your subconscious of, let me see an image of what I want to look like. What weight do I want to be? What size pants do I want to be able to fit through the end of this? Being very specific, very clear about the goal, having a visual image, and then seeing yourself as that. But if you think about it and you start saying, well, I haven't been this weight since, I was in high school. That's a limitation you put on yourself. So it's like, oh, I don't even think I can do it. Then you start changing the goal. Well, maybe I'll just try to get to this. That fear kicks in, that fear of rejection or fear of failure. Man, I said I want to lose 50 pounds by this date. But every time I've tried, I fail because I can't give up cakes and pies and cookies, and the holidays are here, and there's going to be another holiday around this time or such and such birthday, and I know I'm going to want to eat. And so all these things come up, and that's where fear is preventing you versus, it's protecting you. You think it's protecting you, but it's really preventing you. So what I want you to do is take a moment as we get ready to close out here. And I thank everybody for listening. And I pray that this is powerful and transforming for you, and that you'll come back to listen to the other 8 sessions that we'll do on this in this manifestation series. But I want to do sort of an activation practice. And you can come back and listen to this again and just really think about it. But close your eyes and then think of one area where you felt blocked. You felt you plateaued. You felt like you hit the ceiling. You felt like, something's, every time you get to this place, it's just something that's holding you down or keeping you from getting to where you want to go to, whatever you think that is. And then walk through shift. So S, what subconscious belief is behind that feeling that's making you feel blocked? So the S is, what subconscious belief is behind that? What thought loop do you constantly repeat? So that thought loop that you hear about, what is that? What is that? What are those things that you say all the time that you heard when you were younger and it's just been ingrained in your life? What internal story do you tell yourself? What fear are you still obeying? And again, that's the question I just asked. Is your fear, do you think your fear is protecting you or is it preventing you? And fear never protects you. And lastly, and what would it look like to trust your transformation starting today? So right now, as you listen to this, whatever day it is, whatever time it is that you're listening to it, what would it look like to trust your transformation? What are those things that you can see looking now, starting, and you can start where you're at now, but be able to visualize what you want that end to be, that end point to be, and then start that journey. Start identifying those areas of internal limitations and the fear and the subconscious beliefs that you've had before. Like, start identifying. If you need help, that's where prayer comes in. God, help me to identify the things that's limiting me from being able to have the manifestation power the manifesting power that I'm supposed to have. And as God exposes those things to you, then that's where you start dealing with them, working through them to eradicate them from your life. And so now you don't say the limiting phrases and the things that those thought loops that just keep you in a bind or bounded. Now you're past that. Now you've broken through that ceiling. You identify those internal thermostats, those internal thermometers, where it's like, hey, I found out, okay, this is as far as I can go, where I feel like I'm comfortable with success, or this is the amount of money that I'm comfortable with, and I know that's not enough. But if I start thinking higher than that, I feel something in me that just limits me. Or I've been in this relationship for a couple months and things are going great, and I really think this person is going to be great for me. We're going to have a great relationship, but then but then this is the time that I usually start seeing things start falling apart. And it sounds so simple, but that's all it takes. All it takes is a little bit of a crack in the door and it gets bust wide open. So I would encourage everybody, journal, meditate. You can meditate through, reading the Bible. There's Bible apps. There's podcasts like this. There's other podcasts that focus specifically on meditation, subconscious things, that whether you're a Christian or just words of affirmation. You can record a voice note of either something I said or yourself talking, and your affirmations for yourself, and listen to them while you sleep. Put your headphones on. Sometimes we gotta change how we even go to sleep at night. I've always, grew up, or, came up in the church and here, go to bed reading the word. Now we got to scroll through, reels on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything else before we finally fall asleep. Fall asleep on the word. Even if you can only read a few verses, that's going to be more powerful than that TikTok. And there are positive TikToks and Instagrams and all that. And that's what we've built. Motivation, things that are really going to help. But that's not everything you're going to see, because I'm pretty sure there's things in the algorithm that's going to distract you from the things you really need to focus on. And I say that from experience because I've dealt with that. We start focusing on the transformation. So the challenge for everybody is choose one belief from any area of life. Run it through the shift lens that we talked about: subconscious programming, the habitual thought loops, the internal limitations, the fear-based conditioning, and then trusting the transformation. Run it through that. Write down the old belief, and then reframe that into something powerful and aligned with what you truly desire, what you really desire. And then, whether you want to post it, and if you don't feel confident, or, you feel like that's going to cause more pain than anything, don't post it on social media. Just keep it as a mantra just for the week. And just, I'm going to focus on this. I'm no longer thinking and speaking this. I'm thinking and speaking that. And I'm only going to focus on the new way of thinking. And if you want to, I ask everybody to follow me on IG and just share your shift moment with me on IG. Currently, it's still at Billionaire Flow, and use the hashtag Heir Flow Shift. And I want to celebrate that with everybody. I think it's important that we celebrate the wins. I talk about that in my job. So many times we get so caught up in the day-to-day grind of the work we do that we don't even take time to celebrate those small wins. And in life, we got to be able to do that. It's not just about a birthday. It's not just about, something you do through sports and all that. I mean, it can be changing your mind, because that can change your life, and that can change people around you. It can change generations. So definitely excited. I just want to recap here as we close out that manifestation without transformation is spiritual self-sabotage. Oh my God. Say it again. Manifestation without transformation is spiritual self-sabotage. You can say all you want. I want to manifest a car, a house, a spouse, whatever it is you want, health. But if you are not transformed into truly believing and seeing that, and you're still speaking and thinking and feeling those old thoughts of doubt and fear and all that other stuff, you are not going to manifest anything. And it's going to feel painful, and it's going to frustrate you and us because you're living out the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So shift is the process of really clearing the resistance. So that's the whole point when we talk about what this episode is clearing that resistance so you can receive the reality. What are those things that are causing resistance from you to break past that ceiling and truly be able to turn your desires into reality? So again, very excited about where we're going. I just want to share, now that we've kind of moved and we dropped that old ceiling, or we're working towards this week of getting past that old ceiling, it's time to build a new signal, a new frequency for ourselves. So in the next episode, we're going to be breaking down clear. And I'll go into a little bit more, and it's an acronym, of course, but it's how to get hyper specific so your manifestation doesn't miss the mark. And this is where we're going to really focus on drilling down. Now that you've had a chance to dream and open up and understand about subconscious and all that stuff, you shifted, you found out and identified those things that have been holding you back internally, that you have been your worst enemy, or things that happened to you that were formed before you were 7 in your subconscious, and you just carried them through life. Now that we've understood what those things are, we're working through getting those eradicated from us, and now moving through transformation. Now we get hyper specific in this next episode with clear. So I'm excited about it. And just understand that you don't manifest what you want. You manifest who you are. Say that again. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest who you are. So you have to shift your ceiling and understand that your life will rise to meet it. So just in closing out, I just want to make sure that I want to thank everybody first and foremost for listening in. I pray that this is a powerful message for everyone. I pray that everyone gets some benefit out of this. And again, go back. I'm going to link the episodes in the manifestation series in the descriptions. I'll have it as well as on all social media platforms. Follow us at airflowpodcast.com. You can go directly to the website there and subscribe and get all the episodes. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on all the major podcast channels. So, or apps, I should say. So reach us out there. So like, share, and subscribe. I want to continue to grow this community. But as we close out, I just want to kind of shift it now and really focus on being very, very, very clear and concise about what it is that we're going to do. So I want everybody to understand that you are an heir. So you walk in alignment, trust the plan, and flow in purpose. That is the airflow. I love y'all. Have a blessed time.